Tomorrow marks the one-year anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And despite some negotiations between the two sides over the last 365 days, there are no real signs of a way out of this conflict. To help us delve into the war and the possibility of a victory on either side, we are joined live tonight by Jeremy Kinsman, former Canadian ambassador to Russia and the UK, Peter MacKay, former Minister of National Defence, and retired Major General David Fraser, CTV's military analyst. Thank you all for joining us for this special panel discussion tonight. Mr. MacKay, I still remember you and I talking this time last year, and there was so much uncertainty. All of us sort of collectively holding our breath as Russia invaded Ukraine. As you reflect on these past 12 months, what comes to mind?
Well, just the sheer toll on human life inside Ukraine, obviously. The devastation of the infrastructure, of their agriculture, of the environment, just the tremendous damage that has been wreaked upon this country, these people, by Vladimir Putin's army. And of course, there's been massive casualties on the side of the Russians as well. And, you know, as you alluded to, here we are almost a full year on, and really no end in sight. The resolve of Western countries, Canada, the United States, NATO, has been tested. I think you are seeing still a very strong commitment that's coming, more weapons, tanks, potentially aircraft and aerial support in the future. But this is a war that is grinding on the doorstep of Europe. And it has drastic implications for global security and implications really that are creating the conditions for a broader conflict.
We'll talk about those implications in a moment. Mr. Kinsman, on the eve of this grim anniversary, the UN General Assembly trying to send Russia a message here, calling for the country to withdraw all of its troops. Does this increased international pressure, does that mean anything to Vladimir Putin?
I don't think so, Lena, I'm afraid to say. He's a guy, he's the most, one of the most competitive people I've ever met. He doubles down, he would not take a loss. He's going to have to figure out at some point how this is going to end. But right now, both sides are in it. There's talk of an offensive, Russian offensive building now. There's expectation of a counteroffensive from Ukraine. Each side will try and improve its position. I think that at some point, very soon, Putin is going to have to face up to the realities that most of his expectations, not just on the battlefield, but in communications and diplomatically, have not been met. The West has absolutely hung together. They've absolutely bumped up the best armaments support possible. They're digging deep now for munitions. Ukraine has, up since all summer, up until the taking of Kherson, has been really had the winning hand in this. It's not, you know, Putin's expectations. It's going to get better for him. I can't see that they're well placed. Of course, Ukraine is suffering, as Peter MacKay says, terrible losses. And the destruction goes on. The World Bank estimates the costs of fixing Ukraine after the war are going to be twice its gross national product, $350 billion. It's just horrible. And the loss of life is unbelievable. But one thing is clear. Ukraine will survive. Ukraine is united. The linguistic and regional and somewhat religious kind of divisions that existed don't exist anymore. The world's a sadder place. It's going to be a sadder place, and it's going to be a fairly hostile place vis-a-vis Russia for some time to come. And that makes us all sad. But that's the reality we have to live with.
General Fraser, there are growing fears of this potential spring offensive coming from Russia and its widespread implications. Should Ukraine be bracing for the worst? What do you think?
Well, what we've seen over the last year is that Putin completely underestimated the capability of his military, who have actually failed him, and underestimated the resolve of Ukraine and NATO to defend itself. And what we've seen now is a battle war of attrition that both sides have actually fought themselves to. So in the winter months, Ukraine now is regrouping, rearming, and essentially getting a lot of equipment from the West to actually go on the offense. And the same thing is happening on the Russian side. So in this past year, we've seen about 300,000 killed on both sides, a staggering number. And what's really worrisome is 2023 is going to be even more bloody. And quite frankly, neither side has the capability for a knockout punch. This is just going to be a battle of attrition, and whoever can resupply the other better will probably have a better chance of getting to the end. And quite frankly, what does the end look like? Probably a ceasefire and a contested Ukraine, but Ukraine will still be there at the end, as Jeremy said.
Okay. Mr. McKay, Vladimir Putin thought he could take Ukraine in a matter of a couple of days. If you think back to this time last year, that certainly didn't happen. How would you describe the resolve of the Ukrainian people?
Oh, it's nothing short of incredible what Ukraine has been able to do. And, Canada has a place of pride knowing that we helped in the training and the preparation. And let's never forget, Lena, this goes back really to the illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014. And you could go back even further in looking at the circumstances that led us to this place. Over a year ago, there was, 100,000 Russian troops on the border in the south of Ukraine and along their western flank, and they were there to do military exercises. And of course, the rhetoric and the absolute misinformation coming out of Russia has been breathtaking. But truly, what we are seeing here is this type of attrition that General Fraser alluded to. It's going to continue. We are going to see continued massive losses. But the resolve of the West and NATO in particular has also been quite remarkable. We've seen the expansion of NATO. Now Sweden and Finland will be joining the alliance. And hopefully we'll live to see, of course, the ascension of Ukraine into NATO and into the European Union. But the absolute catastrophic damage to this country, and there will be need for reparations. Russia is poorer, is weaker, is less influential, probably more supplicant to China, and has caused incredible geopolitical instability now across the entire globe that we will be paying for many, many years to come. And so it has been a catastrophic failure on the part of Vladimir Putin. He will go down in history as a pariah, as he deserves, and really should be before the dock at the Hague for the war crimes that he has perpetrated.
General Fraser, I want to talk to you about Canada's efforts in this war. We as a nation have sent Ukraine 4 Leopard tanks. Is that enough? Can this country do more?
Well, obviously Canada can do more. And, we should put this into context. Canada is in the top, 6 spenders of monies that we've given to Ukraine. United States is certainly way out there, but Canada has given over $1.4 billion. As a percentage of our GDP, we're still in the top 10 of NATO contributing nations. So, we should be proud of what we have given in the way of financial support. And as Peter said, what we have done on training is nothing less than remarkable. We've changed the way that the Ukrainians fight, and really it's about the NCO Corps is giving them more capability. We've given them a lot of howitzers and some ammunition. Tanks, 4 tanks isn't going to make a hill of beans, quite frankly. And, we've got 82 tanks. We're not at war. We should give them a lot more tanks because that's what they're going to need in the springtime. But on balance, Canada should be pretty proud of what we have done. We've made a significant contribution, but there's an awful lot more we can give them, including more air defense.
Okay. Mr. Kinsman, I know you don't like talking about winners and losers when it comes to this war because it is more complicated than that. But we did hear from Latvia's prime minister today, and he said Ukraine must win this war. Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. I do believe in Ukraine winning the war. It's a question of how we define winning. A year ago, we were defining winning as the survival of Ukraine. I have got no doubt that Ukraine is going to survive. What does a bigger win mean? I don't know. I think it means a whole lot of things. And I think one thing that the principal sort of leaders of Ukraine's friends and allies have decided is not to be specific about what they absolutely expect. I mean, what they expect at a minimum, and especially since the discovery of the crimes against humanity at Bucha and around Kharkiv that have absolutely destroyed any notion of any territorial concessions, not just of land, but of Ukrainian people, to the army that conducted these atrocities. So beyond that, it's very hard to kind of forecast what a win is going to be. What I agree absolutely with David that no one's going to win all the way. I mean, the Ukrainians aren't going to go march all the way to Moscow, and I don't believe for a second that Russia is going to advance and control Ukraine. It's going to have to come to some conclusion. It'll probably be a bitter conclusion, and it won't be settled perhaps definitively for a long time, unless one of these black swan things that you can't expect suddenly happens. So we'll have to see.
No winner all the way. Okay, Mr. McKay, how does this end for Vladimir Putin? Will he ever be tried for what America has recently described as crimes against humanity? Will he ever be ousted by the people of Russia? How does this end for Vladimir Putin?
Well, I think it ends the way it has ended for many Russian leaders throughout their history. And I was reflecting on the recent passing of an anniversary around Stalingrad, now St. Petersburg, where the Soviet people lost 1.1 million people in that one battle for that one city alone. So Russia's history is rife with tragedy. And much of it because of bloodthirsty leaders like Vladimir Putin. He should wind up in a prisoner's dock, but it is unlikely. His violence, going back to his own days as a KGB agent, he has a lot of blood on his hands, and he will likely, in my opinion, be taken out by somebody in his inner circle, because the younger generation of Russians, I think, are now much more wise to the terrible crimes that their country is accused of in Ukraine. Millions are leaving Russia. Their country's future looks very bleak as long as Vladimir Putin is there and this conflict, this illegal invasion, rages on. And so it ends very badly for everyone. And Vladimir Putin is the one who should pay the highest price. And I suspect that he may end up, hanging from a lamppost before this is over.
Okay, we will leave it there tonight. Jeremy Kinsman, former Canadian ambassador to Russia and the UK, Peter McKay, former Minister of National Defense, and retired Major General David Fraser, CTV's military analyst. This has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you all for your time tonight.
Thanks, Lena.
Lena, thank you.